presumably these people who are developing Republican strategies aren't telling people to vote Democrat in the midterm, right? That's a long game, and you need that answer for people to take it on faith. Otherwise, it's just snake handling.
Well, I think that, once again, either way, you can take my word for it or not, but what isn't going to work is Vance and Rubio. Like, that's a 0-win proposition. You could sit there and say, well, but that's better than a Democrat. At least that's concrete. I would say it's concrete that we're going to lose. It's concrete that if we get a continuation of this, we're going to get more of this, and this is not working. So rather than trying something that isn't working, I want to give a chance that something might work. And if people want to take a leap of faith, then I think that's where they need to go. But
Nick pretty much said, I mean, look, man, we can crash out on MAGA and end up with Dems pretty much taking over anyway, or we can try something new and maybe we, fuck up and, make it worse, or maybe we can get something, we can get lucky. And that is a wild ass risk right there. That's quite the risk. I'll be real.
Okay,
the way it is right now,
not working. I guess you would have to define working, right? So again, this is right. Okay, first net negative migration country, right? For over 30 years.
I will be real on this one though. I don't like the idea of just, the Republicans expect us to vote for them just because they're going to fearmonger on Dems. Like, but the Dems is like, yeah, I don't like that. I'm gonna be real with you. It's just not. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. It's like dealing with a girl. When a girl tells you I'm the best you ever gonna get in your life, you know what you do? Your ass leave. Why? Because now they feel like they got that type of leverage over you so they can do, like, trust me, when they start talking like that, or anybody starts talking like that, they know they can do whatever they want, and you're gonna stay. Why? Because they know that in your mind only, that's the best you can get. And if you think that the Republicans are the best you can get, then they can do whatever. And guess what? You're just going to sit there and take it, accept it, and make excuses for it because, you don't want the Dems because, I guess you can call that fear mongering, honestly, because, you're not going to hold the Republicans accountable because, but the Dems. And it's like a girl pretty much telling you, I'm the best you're ever going to get, and you're going to take the disrespect. I'm sorry, but I just can't get down with that.
I dispute that. I don't think that's true.
Okay. Go ahead, dispute it.
I think to say that it's net negative migration, you have to count self-deportations. I've seen a lot of different, and I think those are being overcounted because they took this number from the community survey from the census, which was taken last year, and there were 65,000 households polled, and they basically said, there was a lack of response from like non-residents, non-citizens of the United States, and then they used that to extrapolate, what was the number? 1.5 million people left the country. And then later, by the way, that data got corrected. It was in CIS, Confederation for Immigration, something or other, Center for Immigration Studies. They actually corrected the number with the new 2026 data. And it said, no, actually, we vastly overestimated how many illegals we thought left the country. So in other words, the government keeps track of how many people self-deport. That's not the number they're using. They're using this basically a guess based on a survey with a very small sample size to say, we think all these people left, and that's just not reliable. So I don't, that's not a good number. I don't believe that.
Yeah, well, that's not the only number. And you would have a point if that was the only number that people were using. It's not. It is the number that the left wants people to use. And this is why I say I can, and I get it. You don't like this administration, right? I understand that. So it would make sense that you would use the numbers of people who are sympathetic to attacking the administration. But we also have the CBP one. Okay, so am I. And let's assume that we both are. CBP One app does have abilities to track. The Brookings Institute, by the way, left-leaning, has also estimated net negative migration. There are plenty of third-party analyses. It's not just one number. It's actually one that's not even being argued because the left is using it as an argument as part of their campaign that, hey, isn't this horrible for immigrants? But okay, let's dispute that one number and just let's even say that it's just one source. I would present them, I'll make this stuff publicly available. I disagree with you. But then also looking at, for example, what we talked about, H-1Bs is a big deal. Looking at the border being closed, 96 to 99%, depending if you also want to use border crossings, asylum claims, refugees. You look at spending cuts. I hear people say nothing. Well, no, it's hundreds of billions of dollars in DOGE cuts. And if you want to use the left's point, say, actually, it's only a few $1 billion. It's not possible if you look at what's happened with NGOs. Medicaid alone, just requiring, I think we could agree on this, young, able-bodied American males and females who are single with no kids, working or going to school 80 hours a month. Snap, right? Just no Coca-Cola, no Fanta. You're looking at 900 billion plus another 100-something billion. These are not small things. Work requirements. You look at, I mean, obviously energy independence. I know we're going through the war right now, but if you actually look at what we're able to produce in comparison to the Green New Deal, in comparison to pausing leases, this is going to have a serious effect for Americans. H-1Bs, 87% reduction in new ones, DEI in the federal government. You know, if Democrats get
87% reduction in new ones, no, bro, there has been no reduction. They hit the cap, and there was no 87% reduction in the cap of H-1B visas. So what are you talking about, bro? And shout out to my man. Oh yeah, shout out to my man H3I. Long time no see, my friend. He says the American people need to get rid of their fat asses and form of third party and call it no Zio party. That's the only way to change things. Yeah, I'll be real with you. We do have to remove the Zionists out of government, because this is the problem with these Zionists. They are Israel first. They're not American first. And they are these pro-war guys who want to get us into Middle Eastern conflicts that never benefit us, but does benefit Israel's power in the region. So, yeah, getting rid of the Zionists first out of our politics on both sides would help a lot. That'd be a good start right there. Of course, so, yeah, what we got? Like, remove the money and the Zionists out of politics, man. We're looking to a bright future right there alone. I'm not sure what the third thing would be, but if we could just remove the money and the Zionists, man, I can see it now. We'd be in a great spot. So if we could do it across the board in all nations.
Risk two, we won't be able to have this conversation. We both have to agree on that. If the Democrats seize power, first off, they're going to pack the courts. This is the plan. People need to know it. They will pack the courts. They want to go to 13. They want to make Puerto Rico a state. They want to grant all illegal aliens.
Shout out to H3I. He says we need to get our fat asses up and form a third party and call it the No Zio party. And I'm like, you know what? I'm cool with that. But like I said, the Zionism and money, yeah, both of those got to be removed out of politics, and everything will be all good. Not everything, but shoot, though, I know at least 60% of our problems will be fixed.
The risk, too, we won't be able to have this conversation. We both have to agree on that. If the Democrats seize power, first off, they're going to pack the courts. This is the plan. People need to know it. They will pack the courts. They want to go to 13. They want to make Puerto Rico a state. They want to grant all illegal aliens and any temporary citizens the right to vote and undo everything, right? And that would include deplatforming. That's the risk.
Yeah, you're going to let them do it with this Iran war. Here's the problem. I mean, Nick don't even got to do his little plan here, bro. Due to the fact how this is working now, bro, Democrat voter turnout is going to be astounding. And that's been the problem. If you've been looking at these elections that we've been losing, it's mainly because of high voter turnout from the Democratic side and low voter turnout from our side. So this whole Iran war and the disapproval numbers is discouraging Republicans to vote, but it's encouraging Democrats to vote. So I'm sorry, but we might just get crushed on voter turnout.
That's the plan. So we can't just, and I'm not saying you're lying, but we can't just take your word for it to take that risk. You can understand that.
Well, here's what I would say to that. I think that every election, the Republican side basically overstates what the Republicans are doing for us. And then I think they exacerbate or overstate the risk of Democrats. This whole, like, they're going to pack the courts and make Puerto Rico a state. It's like, well, they didn't do that under Biden. I don't think they're going to do that this time. And if you believe that...
Oh, no, bro. They were too busy with the Ukraine war. So I think if that wasn't going on, they might have actually pushed for that. If they weren't too busy with that.
They did. Why aren't we using the nuclear option? If you really thought Democrats were going to break precedent, pack the courts, make Puerto Rico a state, do this and that, okay, then it's life or death. We have to do everything possible.
It is.
Then use the nuclear option, okay, and pass the SAVE Act.
I mean, all right, if it is, then why aren't the Republicans acting like it? That's the problem. Like Steven Crowder, I understand it's life and death for him. He understands the severity of it. But those Republicans sure don't. No, they don't. Or they'd be acting like it. And they'd be trying to talk Trump out of this war every day.
So that, you know, we could get all these Democrats off the voter rolls, and so that we could break the logjam on DHS and get them their money and do the deportations. But it's like, you know, Republicans will act like it's life or death, most important election. But then when it comes to nuclear option, they go, oh, we can't do that. Oh, well, we can't do the deportation. Oh, well, you know, this is the best we could do. And it's like, okay, so somebody's not telling the truth here. And I don't think it's you, but I think it's
I agree with you. There are Republicans who aren't telling the truth. I agree with you. And by the way, they need to be like, for example, Thune, Cornyn, I mean, screw that guy with a wire brush, right? People like that. Yeah. But we know them by name. To throw them all into the same basket and just, it's a constant dismissal. Like, I don't really think that there are deportations that are enough. I don't really think we're a net negative migration country. I don't really think that 87% of H-1Bs. I don't really think just executive order 2 genders. I don't really care downsizing the federal government by hundreds of thousands. I don't really care that housing prices and rent prices are at multi-year lows. Those things don't matter because it's not enough. But when we know that the Democrats will obviously, and this is their plan, they didn't say they were going to make Puerto Rico a state and pack the court to 13 last time. They're saying that now. What they did say is that they were going to go a different direction on immigration, and we got, by our agreement, 10 to 20 million.
Sorry, but where is rent at an all-time low at? Because rent has only been going up, like, across the board. So where's rent at an all-time low at, bro? Like, do you even rent, cuh? Of course you don't. So, yeah, no, rent's not at an all-time low. Like, what? I wish. Bro, I think we got like the mortgage rate down to somewhat of an all-time low, but not rent.
In 3.5 years. That is unsurvivable. And you're recommending that people take that risk based on then what else? Where do we go? So we vote Democrat, we take the risk, but we cut it off at the pass. But again, it's like, you can say, well, that's not survivable. Well, we got 10 to 20 million illegals. Why? Because Republicans didn't build a wall. And now they're not going out because Republicans won't deport them. So it's like, if Democrats get in, they're going to end the world. That's why we need Republicans to not do anything. No, you're taking what Democrats did and blaming all Republicans. Most Republicans wanted the wall. We voted, but we can't because you also have something known as gridlock. And then you're saying vote for the Democrats who blocked the wall and opened the border.
But in 2017, we had the House, the Senate, the White House, the Supreme Court. Why didn't they use the nuclear option to just build the wall? It's because the Republicans don't really want to build a wall. They want the illegals to come here. And then when the Democrats get in, they can say, oh, shucks, the Democrats brought in all these illegals. So we're going to deport them. Get us elected. Never mind. We only want to deport the violent criminals. Net negative migration is good enough.
Sorry, even if you said a multi-year low, that would still be wrong when it came to rent. It's like, bro, rent at a multi-year low and rent has done nothing but rose, like, since Biden. Like, let's be real. Rent is not at a multi-year low. And please tell me which year.
And it's like, that's the risk. The risk is that we play this game forever.
I don't know. Maybe in his state. I don't know. This shit goes state by state. So I could be charitable and say, maybe in his state, rent's down.
I want to step outside of it, break the matrix. We got to run the Trump playbook from 2016. Get somebody fresh in. To me, that's the risk. I
don't have a problem with getting someone fresh in.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't have a problem with
Yeah, me neither. But where's he coming from? He ain't just about to drop out of the sky saying everything we want to hear.
Getting someone fresh in. As a matter of fact, here's the problem. I actually agree with you in principle on the premise of wanting to get someone fresh in. I don't probably have the disdain for Rubio and Vance. Between the two, I probably would choose Rubio because of
really.
Well, just because I agree with you that the threat of big tech and AI, and I think that's a very uncozy relationship that worries me. But I don't know. They're not ideal. But I still would pick them over a Kamala Harris or a Gavin Newsom. I don't think Gavin Newsom is a Chad. I think Gavin Newsom would be a disaster. I think Gretchen Whitmer would be the worst, but I think they've learned their lesson. They're not going to run abroad, hopefully. She would be the worst thing that could happen to this country, Gretchen Whitmer. But I would like someone else. The problem is your plan guarantees the opposite, historically, without exception.
Fair.
I'm sure you're aware of this. In other words, you're asking people to take a risk. Well, you're aware of the moderate Republican paradox. This goes all the way back to Goldwater.
Which is?
So it's anytime Republicans lose big, right? Democrats achieve power, especially when Republicans go further right and they lose big, Democrats attain power. The donor class, who you need to reckon with the donor class, right, as part of your prescription. They immediately go to the most moderate candidate who they think is winnable. So, for example, just using some like after Goldwater, they decided to go with a more moderate Nixon. What happened with Ford over Reagan? If you look at what happened after George Bush, McCain, and then you even look at examples like the Tea Party swinging further right, and then I'm going, oh my gosh, you know what? We need someone moderate to win the general, Mitt Romney. So what you're doing historically, with pretty much no exception, is guaranteeing the next John McCain or Mitt Romney.
I think you're missing one. I think you're missing a notable exception to that. Yeah.
But Donald Trump was an outsider, was a Democrat his whole life, right? We have to agree it's an outlier. You're talking about operating within the binary. When Republicans lose big, Democrats are so bad, they go, okay, we can't live under this rule. Historically, they go, let's pick them.
Let's be honest, guys. This man Trump remember, he was building buildings before this. So you don't think this man believe in, undocumented work? Like, come on now. Undocumented immigrants coming in, working in his old casinos or helping build his skyscrapers and all that good stuff. You don't think he don't use illegal workers before, guys? Come on now. Come on. Really, most business owners who are, I'm gonna be real with you, damn near, yeah, most business owners use illegal work. Sometimes they don't even know that they are.
Most winnable candidate. So you're going to deal with those donors, hundreds of billions, potentially trillions of dollars in 2028. Ooh. With who, with what kind of funding, and what kind of ground game? Because I also don't want Mitt Romney. For crying out loud, Mitt Romney.
Rubio. Rube, what's the, here's the thing is like, if you're saying you're going for Rubio,
I didn't say I'm going for Rubio. I said if I had to pick between the two, because I really don't like the Palantir connection. I agree with you, is what I was saying.
But, okay, and fair enough. I don't want to mischaracterize your position. However, you must...
I don't know. If I'd choose Palantir over all the neocons surrounding Marco Rubio. I would do that. I'd rather go with J.D. Vance than Marco Rubio, just because all of the, the Mark Levins, Ben Shapiro's, neocons, all surrounding Marco Rubio. I'm good.
Must acknowledge the way it's looking, they're going to consolidate behind one or the other. And right now, it looks like Rubio is the donor choice. The Wall Street donors, the pro-Israel donors, they're taking informal survey. They want Rubio. And to me, it's like, okay, 10 years after Trump defeated Rubio, New American Century, Miriam Adelson's puppet, I think Trump literally said at AIPAC, or the Republican Jewish Coalition, he said, you want Rubio because he's your puppet and he'll do whatever you want because he takes your money. He's a Florida creature.
He also said Ted Cruz's dad killed JFK. Come on, we know what goes on with primaries with Trump. And one thing I do have to address, he's not an outlier. Republicans won in 2014 before Trump paved the way for him. That's what I'm saying. If they win, you can veer them further right. They also won in 2022. If they win, you can veer them right. That's what paved the way for Trump. So it actually proves a point. If Republicans lose...
Hey, guys, give me a break on the Rubio and JD choice. Hey, both of them are a bad option. But if you told me which one I'd rather pick, I guess I'm going with the AI overlords instead of the warlords. I'd rather go with the AI overlords and the warlords. I'm just saying. That's just my choice. Preferably, I'd rather not make a choice. But if I had to, I'm going with the AI overlords.
You guaranteed historically paved the way for a moderate Republican. It doesn't go the other way. So I'm asking you, and that's what I don't want. That's a big fear of mine, by the way. I'm not all in on Rubio or Vance, but I would like to not see someone worse, to not see someone more moderate, to not see a Romney or McCain. That's what we'd be looking at if there's a big Democrat win. You just made my point with Trump, right? He was able to because of 2014 Republican. He probably wouldn't have been able to if you were looking at a Republican loss. It would have been like Goldwater. It would have been like McCain.
But you had a Democrat incumbent or a Democrat leaving office, which was Obama. Here's the dynamic, the way that I see it, is that Democrats win in 2026, and they're going to sabotage this administration because they're going to impeach Trump. They're going to investigate everybody, and they're going to find embezzlement, corruption. Like there's some problems in this administration, or at least there's a lot of smoke, let's say, around Howard Lutnick and some of the crypto stuff. And there's a lot that I would even like to see investigated. And so everybody in the administration is going to be hurt by this, Rubio and Vance included. That weakens them ahead of the primary. If they are toxically associated to the administration, which is failing more under Democrats, then to me, that provides an opening for somebody fresh from the outside that says, I'm sort of repudiating Trump's legacy, or maybe even I have some allegiance to Trump's original message in 2016. Maybe I'm going to save Trumpism from itself or where it went astray. That's kind of, I don't think we need to get into like Barry Goldwater. That's how I see it. If Trump is strong going into 28, then his people are strong. They have a better chance of winning the primary, and there's big consolidation. If they're weak, then people are going, oh, I don't know. Rubio and Vance are toxic. They're tied to Trump. They're unpopular. Maybe we need something else. So I think that's the dynamic. I mean, do you disagree, and why?
Well, if he's strong, wouldn't that suggest that the country's in a good place?
Yeah, I do. In a better place, certainly.
In a better place with Democrats.
Right. No. If Trump is strong,
we're saying if strong going into 28 after people vote Democrat.
No. If Trump is strong, if Democrats don't win big and they're not able to sabotage him,
okay,
he'll be stronger than he would have been otherwise.
True.
So wait, are you saying?
I think he's saying pretty much, if Trump's able to come out on top on the midterms, regardless of this whole entire situation, then yeah, I mean, that means Trump's political stock is still strong.
It would be strong because people vote Democrat?
Dude, I mean, overly strong. Like he beat the midterms curse, if that's the case.
No, I'm saying he's stronger if Democrats don't win.
Right, the midterms.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So how does that play into your plan? And forgive me, it could have been a timeline there where I was confused. I was assuming that we were going along with your plan, and Democrats get voted in 2026.
Yeah, Democrats get voted in 26, and they weaken Trump. Trump is weaker, and by association, everybody else is weaker. Rubio, Vance, because again, they're going to dredge up all this stuff, and you're not going to be able to run from that because they're going to haul people before the House. They're going to impeach people. It's going to get ugly, and I want them to bring, because this administration's a failure. It's an utter betrayal. And I don't think maybe. I don't want to say you won't acknowledge. I think you disagree, but they promise mass deportations, and that's not happening. They're going
to try to send that boy Hegseth to jail. They trust me. They're going to try to send Trump to jail, but Hegseth, I think they're probably really going to try to get him. They're going to try to get Pam Bondi. They're going to try to get Kristi Noem. Oh yeah, even the people got fired, they're bringing them back.
No new wars, and we got a war with Iran. They stabbed us in the back.
So a couple of things there, and I think this is important. We did get it. If you want to predicate it on Democrat numbers that we don't have deportations or enough, but at least we have some versus mass importations. And I certainly would say if you look to the matter of record that even from left-leaning think tanks, institutes, that we are seeing record deportations. We have a net negative migration country. I never thought would happen in our lifetime. Nobody actually disputes that except for you. Okay, I don't think that's a betrayal.
That's not nobody.
I do think a betrayal is saying that you don't care about immigration, which you said. And that's where I need to know, do these things matter? Do these things matter to you? Does immigration matter? Yeah, does immigration actually matter? Because people who care about immigration certainly see this administration as the biggest wins of our lifetime ever, in contrast to Biden.
You're wrong about that. You're wrong about that, and I'll tell you why. Because there are people...
Not on H-1B visas. Now, I'll give it to the administration when it comes to deportations, just on the fact that, the self-deportations are high, 600,000. So, okay, great. But H-1B visas, I mean, bro, that was not stopped whatsoever.
People in DHS, I talk to people in the administration. I'm sure you do as well. The morale is low.
I actually really don't. You're probably more welcome than I am.
Really?
Surprising as it is.
Well,
you're more congenial.
I'm a pretty congenial guy.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm more of a friendly.
No, you're a good guy, Stephen. We get along, but in DHS, the morale is super low. They're literally going and telling people
it's low because of sanctuary cities and people fucking kicking out their taillights and them being hamstrung. You're sidestepping people creating sanctuary cities. The left will not deport violent felons in our prison system, Nick, and you're telling people to vote for them. They can't just sidestep it.
It's always these excuses like Republicans are going to give us deportations. Well, no, we can't because sanctuary cities and Congress.
I didn't say that. They still are in spite of it. Donald Trump gave us an 87% reduction, which you haven't. You ran billboards. Give me this.
Are we talking about H-1Bs or illegals right now?
Both. Because you said last time you were on the show, because last time on the show you said, well, who cares about illegal immigration? You accepted the premise because if they're replacing you legally, and you run billboards on that, and it's the single biggest strides that have ever been made in our lifetime. And you're like, I don't know. That sounds to me like an excuse, Nick.
They said mass deportations, not net negative migration. They said mass deportations, largest deportation in history. And by the way, there's people in DHS, they're reaching out to this mass deportations project, this mass deportation coalition, because Trump is holding it back. Trump has been convinced by Brooke Rollins that we can't deport people from farms. And he's being convinced by Wall Street that we can't deport a lot of people in general from the labor force because it's going to put upward pressure on prices. It's going to hurt the economy. So it's like, well, let's be honest. Trump is the problem. Trump is slowing down deportations. He doesn't want them. They're betraying us. They could do more. They're choosing not to. They walked it back 100 times in the past few months. They went to the Trump doral for their congressional retreat. And the deputy chief of staff said, don't say mass deportations, that's done. Susie Wiles and the rest of them said it's a course correction. We're shifting gears. We're changing the strategy. We're focusing on violent offenders, violent criminals. There's all this consternation in the White House saying, oh, Trump is being convinced to approve all these seasonal farm workers. He's being convinced not to do the deportations, only focus on criminals, which, by the way, that's kind of like what Biden was doing, picking people up at prisons that murdered people.
Yeah,
that's been going on. That's an Obama policy, but go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Because we both, by the way, have a tendency to kind of, I think your brain works the same way I do. We're like, and this bullshit, and this bullshit.
I mean, pretty much he's saying, I mean, honestly, yeah, like I said, it's that corporate agenda. Get rid of all the illegals that the corporations can't use and keep all the ones that they can. And, you know, so somebody tries to push to remove the ones that these corporations can use. We try to, well, the Republicans and Dems are going to try to hold them up on that and call us either racist or, oh, you don't understand. We need them here to bring down prices, you know, whatever bullshit they want to feed us.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but it's in my personal life too. I'll come home to my lady. I'll be like, this bullshit. She'll be like, okay, it's kind of like the old man. Put him down, like, go, Ted, go grab a drink and calm down and play some games. So I wanted to deal with those kind of separately. I understand what you're saying, but you are making the same mistake that the left makes quite often. And what I mean by that is pointing to rhetoric as opposed to policy. So you say, okay, let's assume, although I just don't agree, there are no record deportations. There are, in comparison to Obama, to Clinton, certainly to Biden. We certainly would have to agree on that because they counted border turnaways. But net negative migration. Okay, that doesn't matter. You're pointing to the rhetoric. Okay, H-1Bs, that doesn't matter because you're pointing to the rhetoric. You also have to look at other numbers, like, for example, the job growth under Biden entirely to foreign-born workers. These numbers also don't lie. Net negative for native-born Americans, and it has flipped precisely under Donald Trump. That is important for particularly young Americans who you have as an audience, right? We have a youth unemployment that I think we would both agree is directly affected by H-1Bs, cheap labor, illegal immigration. It's bad here. It's worse anywhere the left has power. You're talking about 20% across Europe. You're talking about 15% in Canada. Those numbers also don't lie. Okay, Joe Biden, no Americans hired post-COVID. Only foreign-born workers. First year of Donald Trump, switch. Foreign-born workers, their jobs go down, job losses, growth for native-born Americans. That in combination does become undeniable in saying these aren't mild differences. This is a major difference. And
just to give a little bit of nuance here, just to be fair, during the Biden administration, the debates regarding job growth for native-born versus foreign-born workers centered on whether the recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic favored one group over the other. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics current population survey, which is not seasonally adjusted, showed significant increase in employment for both groups, though foreign-born workers saw higher rates of growth in certain periods. So yeah, foreign-born workers. Data indicated that foreign-born employment rose by approximately 5.1 to 5.5 million from early 2021 to early 2024, with some estimates noting a gain of 3.3 million compared to pre-pandemic levels of February 2020 or early 2024. And native-born workers, for them, employment for native-born workers also grew significantly during the same period, with one analyst of February 2021 to February 2024 period showing an increase of 5.7 million for U.S.-born workers. All right.
Rhetoric, you know, and having to deal with the media. Well, we're going after violent criminals first. Tom Homan was on the show. I guess that would be one of the administration. He's someone we've had in the show a couple of times. He said, you know, well, of course, we're going after violent criminals, but what are we going to do if we run into someone who's not violent? We're going to deport them. They can't be here. That's our job. We're going to deport them too. In other words, it gives them some leeway, and the numbers bear that out. It's not even close, Nick.
No, but here's the thing. I mean, you can say it's better than Obama, but have we been fighting for 10 years for all of this? For like, well, we're deporting more people than Obama after they let in 20 million people.
Foreign-born workers is crazy, though. 5 million? I mean, damn, those are 5 million jobs that could have went to Americans. But it is what it is.
People, no, we voted for mass deportations. We're not even getting 1 million a year. ICE won't release the numbers because they're embarrassingly low. That's why we have to rely on like census data to extrapolate it and get, well, 1 million people self-deported. You know, that's what they promised. And by the way, you're saying it's all rhetoric. Let's look at the policy. After they withdrew from Minneapolis, they said, we're done doing raids. They were doing these big operations in Chicago, New York, Minneapolis, where they surged thousands of CBP and ICE into the city. And what they would do is patrols. They would have ICE out on the street, basically looking for illegals, going door to door. What they've done since then is they put body cams on them. They stopped doing these big surges. They stopped doing the patrols and the big raids. And what they've effectively shifted over to, like in New York, for example, is they're only going to go to the prisons. If someone gets arrested for murder, they go to prison, they're not legal, then ICE picks them up. And that's really all that is happening right now. If you wanted mass deportations, what would that look like? Home Depots, farms, meat processing plants, the Hyundai facilities.
Facts.
But what happens when those places get raided? Trump gets a call.
Yeah, that's facts. It's like, yo, when you really start raiding the places that we're actually, you know, concerned about, like you start raiding these factories, you know, the Home Depots. And here's the thing, though. I always did say, though, those Mexicans that do construction on your roof and all that, those do undermine the roofers. Like, we're talking about something that you probably would be paying, I don't know, maybe like, damn, I ain't gonna lie, I work for 20,000, they'll do for 10, maybe 5,000. Like, how can the roofers compete with that? It's honestly not fair. But people are okay with it because they can catch a cheap price. But here's the thing, though. Once you start doing that to corporations, you start taking away that from them. They look at, bro, that's when they start calling up, you know, politicians, and they're like, yeah, go ahead and stop this whole immigration stuff because I need my cheap labor, bro. Like, you know how much money I'm gonna have to start paying if I actually got to start paying Americans? Like, come on.
He gets a call from Wall Street. He gets a call from Hyundai. He gets a call from Brooke Rollins. And they say, stop deporting our farmers. Stop deporting our Hyundai employees. Stop deporting. And so Trump is effectively protecting our illegal immigrant workforce. They could deport them. They're choosing not to. The numbers.
And not only is he not deporting them, but he should be sending these guys to jail. Like, they should all be catching a case. Like, you're literally complaining to me that I'm not letting you guys commit a crime. Like, is it not a crime to hire illegal workers? Last time I checked, it is. So it's kind of crazy how they're calling in on politicians to allow them to commit a crime. Like, this is insane. But here we are.
Could be higher. They could be doing raids. They stopped doing them. And they stopped doing them, they said, because of politics. We'll lose the midterms, you know, all this stuff. And I'm just saying, you know, it could be better. It really could be. They're choosing not to.
It could be better. Of course, it could always be better.
Things could always be much better.
Okay, let's say it could be much better. It's funny that you use a meat processing plant because we saw the exact example in I believe it was Omaha, Nebraska, where then there were Americans lined up when a bunch of people had been raided and people.
And then they shut it down. And
this happens
Hyundai
across.
Thing too.
So are you saying that there's an equivalency? In other words, it's not that big of a difference as far as immigration.
Yeah, I think it's not meaningful at all. No,
okay.
That's getting back to.
And what about, let's go through, what about H-1Bs? 87%. It's not 100, it's 87% in new ones. The place he has, is that significant?
No, I don't think so. It needs to go entirely. There needs to be no H-1Bs.
Okay, so 87%.
Oh, there needs to be no H-1Bs whatsoever. The fact that we let in 85,000 of these guys, so 65,000 bachelors and 20,000 masters. I mean, bro, we got our own. Like, bro, I'm pretty sure we got 65,000 bachelors that are graduating any minute now that we can go ahead and be like, hey, guys, we got a job for you. Instead of being, oh, my bad, I'm sorry, we gave it to the Jeets. Like, that's kind of fucked up how we're making them go through this process, this long process, to pretty much get replaced by somebody in another country who only went to school for 2 years. And we made our guy go through school for 4. Bro. They have a tech school in India. You only got to go to school for 2 years and somehow you end up with a job here. But we're making our guys go through for 4 and we're calling them less qualified. Like, bro, I'm sorry, but bro, miss me with that.
Percent reduction is nothing, so we'll go with the party that increases them by 200%.
They hit the cap. They hit the cap every year. And by the way, we're going to get more. I mean, Elon Musk and Little Tech are lobbying this administration. So 87%,
99% border crossing reduction, not significant.
No, there's no wall. We did that in 2020, and then we got 10 million illegals.
We're building the wall now. Well, the wall was stopped again after the midterms, and you encouraged people to sit out, and the Senate flipped. Well,
How much you want to bet? How much you want to bet that the wall will be finished?
It's like over 50 miles. Is that what the wall is? Over 50 miles, and there's another 17 miles of secondary wall. This is just in the very first.
2,000 miles.
Yeah, we built how many hundreds of miles in the first term, and how many times was it being gridlocked by the Democrats who you say people should vote for?
60 miles of new wall. There's 400 miles of replacement, 60 miles of new wall out of 2,000.
How many was in the first term? Is what we're.
It is being slow walked. I mean, out of all honesty, though, like, let's be real. If we wanted to get this done, we'll be able to get it as done as we are erecting these damn data centers. We can erect those damn border walls. As quick as we're able to get these data centers up, we should be able to erect these border walls just as fast.
Talking right. Then now we have another 50 plus, is it, call it 75?
For the first term was 60 new, and this second term, I'll take your word for it. I haven't looked at it, but if it's 70, I mean, then you got a grand total of 130 miles of new wall.
Okay,
5%.
And how many were built under Democrats? And how much of that was done when we had control versus Democrats?
That's crazy.
We need more. We need more. But the point is, there will be no wall. Wait, we know this. So,
but there isn't a wall.
So let's vote for the party. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
sorry, you go ahead.
No. And I understand this, right? I guess we're dealing with, like, it's very clear to me that none of these are significant to you, right? Immigration, because most people,
it is.
Most people,
no, they're not smarter than the white man. No, it's not that. They're not smarter than American scholars either. Look, this is what you guys got to understand. So when these graduates, I think software engineering is probably the best one when it comes to tech, because H-1B visas is, I mean, bro, they're abused in the tech industry. So let's say this: a software engineer graduates and he's supposed to be able to get an entry position for like $100K a year. God bless him. But the problem is that they'll bring in, a guy from India or China who's going to work for $70,000 a year. That's the problem. It's not that they're better, they're cheaper. And that's what I hate when you guys, I mean, I'm not going to say, well, yeah, I'm just going to say, I do hate when people have that opinion of, oh, well, aren't they just more capable? No, they're cheaper. They're only doing this because they're cheaper. It's not because they're hard workers, it's because they're cheaper. And it's not because we're not hard workers. It's because these guys are cheaper. When you pay $30,000 less a year for employment, I mean, wouldn't you want more H-1B visas if it's going to save you about $30,000 on employment per employee? Like, think about it like that. You got 10 slots of software engineers. You bring in 3 Americans for $100K a year, but you bring in 7 Indians and Chinese guys for $70K a year. But if you had to hire all Americans, you'd be paying each and every one of them $100K. Like, do you see the incentive here?
Good. Hold on a second. Most people, if you could tell them, look, this is what's going to happen. Okay, you're not going to get everything that you want, but you're going to get $1.3 trillion in cuts and proposed cuts, and you're going to have these for the first time entitlement reform, and you're going to have a net negative migration.
And let's be real, though. I mean, American scholars are more than just white people. I would hope you understand that.
Country for the first time since the 1970s.
I'm saying, I hope you understand.
And you're going to have DEI out. You're actually going to have Supreme Court cases where affirmative action, you can't admit people in college based on race anymore. And by the way, Medicaid's not going to be paying to trans kids because we're going to have that Chevron case overturned. Okay, if you just told people net negative migration before the election, people would have taken that deal. And instead, you're saying hand it over to the people who opened it up. So let's go back to that. I'm fine with it, with that risk. In other words, if you're telling me we can get much better. So the Nick Fuentes plan is we can get 100% deportations, right? Not 87% H-1Bs. We can get 100% H-1 done completely. Guarantee it. We can get Medicaid, not just a $900 billion.
Yeah, we just got to tell all the corporate guys to kick rocks, and we can go ahead and get the H-1B visas taken care of. But what the politicians won't admit is that they're slave to these corporate guys. And I mean, they're the ones who run them. They're the ones who pretty much decide our policy. And that's just the facts right there. Because let's be real, all of us Americans all agree that, you're right, S.E.T. This is undermining American scholars and American citizens. So why not just end H-1B visas? Why not just end all that? Why not start taking these guys to jail? Because the guys that we have to take to jail are paying the politicians, or else we be taking their asses to jail one by one.
All of this, you can get it done because you're going to vote Democrat in 2026, and then I still need concrete.
Well, let's just reframe the deal a little bit, okay? Because here's the real deal: is Republicans say we're going to build a wall, and a wall. Trump said 30-foot concrete structure, 2,000 miles of wall. That was the proposal in January 2018. That's what we had in mind.
Sure.
Well, what you're really going to get is 130 miles of 18-foot steel bollard fencing with a 5-foot climbing plate after 10 years. Then they say mass deportations. We're going to deport 1 million people per year. They don't even release the numbers. According to the New York Times, they deported 230,000 last year. Maybe they arrested 300,000 more. Okay, that's not a mass deportation. you're not even making a dent. Hang on, in just those 10 years. Then you want to say, well, they cut $800 billion in Medicaid to pay for a permanent cut in the corporate tax rate. And they want a $1.5 trillion military for this year alone. And we have a war in Iran.
No, Sally, and you're right, but you got to let it stay like that. There has to be scarcity in the job market for people to get paid more. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And here's the thing. I do think that these corporations make up the fake scarcity for these jobs, or, the fake need for these jobs, so they can give you an excuse on why they need to bring in H-1B visas and replace you. But to be quite honest, they have every incentive to pretty much lie to us about that. Like, here's the thing. What you're saying, most likely true. I'm pretty sure we do have 500,000 vacant tech jobs, but we need that scarcity, or else what's going to happen? They're going to drive down wages.
That's costing us $50, maybe $100 billion when all is said and done, not to mention the gas prices. So it's like, we're promised all these things. We never get them. And so you're right. It's a huge risk, but I'm saying I'm not going Democrat. I'm not going center right. I'm voting no on both of those. And yeah, I'm hoping that we can open up a space where someone far right can fill it. And you're right. It's a huge risk. You're right. It's totally uncertain. But I think the real risk, again, is, these half measures. I think unless we have radical reform, it's either we're getting our head cut off or we're getting cut in half. I'm voting for maybe there'll be some option where we don't get totally destroyed. And that's all I'm interested in. That's all I care about. You want to cut around the edges on immigration. It's not going to meaningfully change the demographics of the country. How many illegals are here? 40, 50 million. You want to say, well, we deported 1 million. It's like, okay, cool. We're still in this immigrant nation. So.
Yeah, no, well, first off, I'm familiar with that New York Times article. They cited 500,000, and that's not including self-deportations, which is the vast majority of them. I get that you say, I don't count it. I don't count self-deportation. I don't believe in
arrests and removals. So yeah, 500,000 is arrests and removals.
I don't believe in self-deportations. Okay. That's still very different from 10 to 20 million in the span of 3 years, which you guaranteed will get. Let's assume you don't believe the Democrats' clearly laid out plan of packing the courts, of undoing all the decisions, of making Puerto Rico a state, of redistricting. Let's assume you don't believe any of that. Will we both agree, for sure, if Democrats attain power, another 10 to 20 million illegals in that term?
I'm not sure. I really have no idea. I think if
you're a betting man, Nick.
Honestly, no, because you know what?
So they did it under Biden, but learned their lesson?
No, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
If you look at Davos this year, there was agreement, actually. I think Clinton said this in an interview sometime after this. I believe Hillary Clinton, that is. I believe Bill Gates said something to this effect. They said, because of AI, we don't actually want the irregular migration anymore. Why did they need the illegal immigration in 21, 22, 23? Because there was a labor shortage after the pandemic ended. And so, yeah, I do think actually the tides have shifted.
I don't agree with that.
Okay, well,
I mean, let's be real though. Because of that labor shortage, yeah, they were offering so much incentives to bring people back. Ironically, bro, the things that we wanted to get out of these corporations, we were getting due to the shortage in the labor market. They were offering better benefits, higher pay, all of that. And all you Dems had to do was sit there and just let things rock. But no. We need illegal set. We need H-1B visas. Nigga, we got them right where we want them. But whatever.
And that's what they say.
Here's the thing. I think, no, I understand. I don't agree with their framing.
Oh, okay.
Meaning there wasn't a labor shortage. And that's what's so distressing about the left. And this is why I can't vote for them. This is how sinister they are. They specifically hired and replaced, and you've talked about this, replaced Americans with third world labor. Native-born American jobs went down after the pandemic. Foreign-born jobs went up. It's directly flipped under Trump. So there wasn't a labor shortage. We would both have to agree the Democrats lied. They wanted cheap labor because ultimately they wanted votes. That's my only disagreement. I think they're just that sinister and the numbers bear it out. But please continue.
Well, I mean, strictly speaking, it's just that there would be two ways to remedy that. I mean, if you had a real labor shortage, what was happening is that all these companies were just increasing their wages. And I remember you drive down the street and you'd see a window in McDonald's and it would say $25 an hour, stipend for tuition, blah, blah, because they wanted to incentivize Americans to return to the labor force. And so,
that's what I'm saying. We had them where we want them. They was raising wages, upping benefits, bro, sign-on bonuses all over the place. I'm just like, bro, we had them where we want them. And then for some reason, they just wanted to F that all up.
Remedy the shortage. You could raise the wages or you could open up the borders. So in a sense, I suppose we agree. maybe it's just the semantics about, what constitutes a shortage. But I would say that.
No, I don't think it's semantics. I think it's don't subsidize Americans and let wages go up as a product of the free. It's not complicated. It's a problem that they created on purpose so they could solve by replacing Americans with third world labor.
Yep.
I don't think it's an accident. You think it's an accident?
No, not that it's an accident. I just think it's just about how you approach the problem. They could have raised wages.
Do you believe that Democrats had a proactive approach to replacing Americans with third worlders in order to change the demographics and gain votes? Because I do.
I think yes, but, and this is what I think maybe you might miss.
It could have been a secret deal between the corporate elites and the Democrats. Like, look, you want to bring in illegals for, to shift the census. We want to bring in illegals to work on our farms and do construction and work on our, franchises. So, we can go ahead and save money on wages. So we can both work together here. And I mean, there you go. You got this evil alliance of two people who want to bring in illegals for their own self-interest.
As more loyal to the Republicans is that the business interests which are Republican, play a profound role in opening up the borders. I mean, it's the 1990 Immigration Act, actually, which is what created all these programs, increased the amount of immigrants coming in, and that was lobbied for by the Chamber of Commerce under George Bush because the business interests wanted the labor. So I think there's a two-part thing where Democrats, you're right, they want the demographic change. They, refugees welcome, blah, blah, blah. But it's the Republicans in agriculture and hospitality on Wall Street. They want the cheap labor too, for economic reasons. So, you can't say it's all Democrats and not Republicans.
Well, no, what I would say is I wouldn't say that. And I think we agree. Okay. It's all Democrats. I do believe that Democrats in a perfect world would replace you. I think that's why you're America First, right? They want to replace white, Christian, Anglo-Saxon Americans with...
Yeah, but so does the corporate elites, Democrats and the Republicans. They don't care as long as they get to pay lower in wages and they get higher pay. So, like I said, you just can't make it a left-wing thing because, I mean, honestly, the right has their agenda for wanting it as well.
Anyone whose vote is easier to buy. Would we agree with that fundamental premise?
Totally.
Okay. And then I think some Republicans, people like Bush included, by the way, Reagan really screwed up when you're talking about immigration, as far as business interests or this idea that, it'll sort itself.
Yeah, he screwed up with the whole free trade idea and immigration. Like, bro, the way he sold those jobs out to China, oh, Lord.
Through the free market. The problem is there was so much interference that we now see there are corporate interests that superseded it. We see a very stark contrast between those Republicans and this Trump administration. That's what for the first time, there's been a stark contrast. But I do think the primary problem is exactly what you've said in the past. The left absolutely wants to replace you with a demographic that is easier to manipulate, put on the public dole,
that is true.
And gain votes.
That's true. No, Sally, you're right. No, bringing in immigrants used to be low-key a Republican thing, and they would go off the idea of, we need somebody to work the farms and all that. So trust me, they've been with this corporate elite idea of, we need immigrants to go ahead and work the farms, low key slavery. And it's kind of crazy how now the Dems are now defending this position. That's why it's so weird, because you're right. Republicans started this, but the Dems are defending it. So it's it's a really weird topic when we talk about it politically, because it's just you're right. Republicans started this, but the Dems are now holding the torch for it, except they're doing this on a more of a humanitarian basis of, we need to treat them better. They're escaping tyranny. We need to help them out. But in actuality, they're also working with the corporate elite. They're just painting it in a more, philosophical picture for you of being a humanitarian and all that good stuff.
And they did it to the tune of 10 to 20 million. They did not fix the labor shortage. What happened is they created a labor shortage, whether it's rent forgiveness, student loan forgiveness, the subsidies, the COVID relief that was going out, knowing that Americans would go back into the workforce more slowly. Wages were going up, and instead they brought in massive, not only illegal immigrants, but the same reason you ran billboards, H-1Bs, that for certainly their tenure, and would be forever if not reversed, suppress American wages. Those are issues for me. I know you said that immigration doesn't matter to you anymore, and I think you were being hyperbolic. But that is, to me, enough of a contrast when I understand the replacement of Americans, because we won't have an America anymore.
Well, to address that comment, I said that in the context of, I think that immigration is one of these issues that is always dangled in front of us out of reach. And Republicans been playing this game for 40 years. And it's like you pointed out, even Reagan, we're going to give 3 million amnesty and then we're going to close the border. Doesn't happen. Same thing even with Trump. Trump said we're going to build the border wall. We're going to slow it down. And let's be honest, immigration got really bad in Trump's first term, right up through May, June 2019 until they implemented Remain in Mexico. And then in 2020, they shut it down because of the pandemic. But it's like it was even bad under Trump 1. And then let's talk about, for example, the pandemic-induced labor shortage. Who shut down the economy? Trump. Who did Operation Warp Speed? Trump. Who let BLM wreck the cities? Trump. Who gave Venezuelans TPS in January 2021? Trump. And how many of those 10-20 million were from Venezuela?
No, and this is what you do, and it's just, and I know that look, because you're very smart. This is clever, but it's just not accurate. And I would say it's disingenuous to say, Trump, because BLM started before Donald Trump. We both know that. And we also know that domestically. Hold on.
Bro, what? Bro, it's not about when BLM started. It's about the fact that Donald Trump didn't bring down the forces of the military on their ass when they was riding through the streets. But to be quite honest with you, it's pretty hard to bring down force on them when we really don't know which one is BLM and which one is just a rioter just getting involved in the chaos. So I understand the hesitation.
Second, domestically, the president doesn't have the same broad authority. And I know you've talked about this. So, for example, whether you agree or disagree with the war in Iran, people saying it's a war crime for any president to carry out a military action. No, we both know that the president has much broader powers as it relates to issues of national security. That's also why he has much broader powers in dealing with H-1Bs coming in, or specifically policy as it relates to people entering the country. The president doesn't have these broad powers to guarantee funding for a wall, right? We know that. But the president does have, the broad powers when you say remain in Mexico. When was that reversed and who reversed it? Wherever he can, exactly. Whenever he can, like you said, wherever he can through executive order or presidential powers, he's used his most potent tools and he's been gridlocked by the party you tell people to vote for. And some, not all, but too many Republicans. So my approach is back to Steel Manning. Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. I don't think the Trump administration or Trump fears the Democrats taking over more than, Crowder does. And the reason why I think that is just because I'm like, all right, yeah, you're right.